Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and today I want to discuss a question which has been bugging me lately, and it's not about the conspiracy bugs this time it's about the Borg, and there were always some contradictions regarding the Borg between the various Star Trek shows and episodes, but most of those can be explained away by saying the Borg can simply adapt and change, and do things differently if they want to and so on, but there are still some nagging questions which I have which were never answered, which creates some logical problems regarding the Borg's plans for the future. And the main question I have is, do Borg drones actually age? Do they grow old and eventually die? Because if so, then that means that even if the Borg manage to assimilate everyone in the galaxy, then eventually the Borg themselves will go extinct as well, since they'll have no one left to assimilate, and if the Borg drones will die from old age, then eventually all the Borg drones will die and only the technology will be left. And if they said that that's the main ultimate objective, only to collect everyone's technology and knowledge and then just keep that without the biological parts, then it can make sense. But that's not what the Borg always say they want to do. They say they want to keep all the organic elements as well, to add everyone's biological distinctiveness to the collective as well. So that means they do not want all the organic parts to die eventually. Now, an easy solution will be to say that the Borg can simply reproduce, which is something which was implied in their very first appearance in the TNG episode Q Who. We saw a chamber which had some Borg babies in it, and Riker assumed that the Borg do reproduce organically, and only later start adding cybernetic parts to the babies. So that seems to be an easy solution for the population problem I mentioned. So if the Borg can simply create babies whenever they need to, then they can replace the old drones that died from old age with new ones that they can also genetically engineer if they want to. They can pick whatever genes they want from anyone and create new variations, not just cloning the same people again unless they want to. And we can argue maybe the Borg Queen is cloning herself whenever she dies, because sometimes she apparently is the same actress. And technically there should be no reason why they wouldn't be able to do that if they are so advanced, so they should be able to do that, and apparently they do it with the Borg Queen, because every time she dies she comes back, sometimes as the same actress, sometimes as a different one. So the collective obviously can bring her back whenever they need to by cloning her and then installing all the cybernetic parts, and maybe sometimes they alter her genetic makeup as well. And recently apparently she decided to keep her organic hands because, in the past she only had a head and torso and the rest of her was totally robotic, but recently she decided to keep her organic hands for some reason. So my point is that if they can clone the Borg Queen, then they can also do the same with any Borg drone or simply create new drone babies if they want to. The problem was in Voyager there was a specific scene when Seven directly said that the Borg do not reproduce in this fashion. They do not create babies, they only assimilate. So if that statement is true, and the Borg do not produce any new baby drones, then that means that eventually, if they do manage to assimilate the entire galaxy, if the Borg drones do not live forever, then eventually they will have a depopulation when all the drones start dying off, until there is no one left. And so that makes no sense. So they can either keep Borg drones alive indefinitely, or they will have to produce new Borg babies. Also, in season 3 of Star Trek Picard, it's been stated that the Borg are the ones that gave Picard his Iromodic syndrome or some similar condition, and it seemed to have shortened his lifespan because in season 1 they showed him dying because of it. Now, I made a speculation video that maybe it was actually the beacon that Soji sent out into space which actually killed Picard because his brain was a receiver and maybe she overloaded his brain and that's why he died. But even before that, we had that scene with the doctor talking with Picard, telling him that he will die soon because of his condition. So if the condition indeed shortens the lifespan, and yet the Borg themselves added the same condition to everyone, that means all their drones will die even earlier than they would have naturally, unless they can keep them alive with their technology for much longer, presumably even forever. And if that's the case, if being assimilated is a way to immortality, then wouldn't that be kind of tempting to some people, especially old people who are about to die soon anyway? Wouldn't they want to go and join the Borg so they can live forever as part of the collective? So it kind of makes it sound tempting. And yet the Borg never told it to anyone, they never offered that option to anyone. They don't try to tempt them with that idea of immortality, so why not if that is indeed the case? In my personal headcanon, I would say that Borg drones probably live a lot longer than normal humans because with their advanced technology, maybe they are able to slow down aging, but maybe not completely stop it. and they are able to clone new drones whenever they do need to. So maybe they haven't reached that point yet. Maybe they have the opposite problem of overpopulation because they assimilated so many planets, and so maybe they don't want to keep every single body they ever assimilated in the collective because it requires a lot of room and energy. So maybe they only keep the specimens they want to, and simply shutting off the ones they don't need to. They can always liquefy their bodies and feed them intravenously to the living and all of that, like in the Matrix, and so that would make it kind of creepy. And technically the Borg collective should want to have as many brains as possible because, each brain adds a size to the bigger overall brain of the collective, so you would think they would want to have as many brains as possible, but maybe too many brains is also a burden or a risk because keeping everything in order is also difficult. So even though Seven said the Borg do not reproduce in this fashion when talking about Borg babies, I assume they are able to do that if they ever need to. So maybe they haven't reached that point yet, but they will eventually have to do it when they run out of planets to assimilate. If their drones do age and die eventually, then they will have to start cloning or reproducing their drones at some point. And in TNG it was kind of implied that the Borg are their own species, that they only decided to assimilate others in Season 3 of TNG, because in Season 2 Q directly said that they are not interested in humans, only in their technology. And in the episode I, Borg, they talked about Hugh as if he was born a Borg drone and was never assimilated before, because they never tried to look him up to find out what species he was from originally, or if he maybe was a Federation citizen, since he looked like a human, and they never even tried to figure that out. So they talked about him as if he was born a Borg and was always a Borg, and never tried to investigate any other option. They never tried to revive his old memories from before being assimilated or anything like that. So that implies that in TNG they were thinking that the Borg are their own species which does reproduce, as was shown in the episode Q Who. And only later in Voyager it was stated by Seven the Borg do not reproduce in this fashion, they only assimilate. So those are the kinds of contradictions I mentioned, but we can resolve it easily because with their technology, obviously the Borg should be able to clone people or have artificial wombs to grow new babies whenever they do need to. So they can always take any DNA from any Borg drone they have and mix it in any way they want to, and genetically engineer it if they want to, and create any new combination of a biological creature they need to. And again, that's something I wish we would have seen, because how come most of the Borg drones we see are always human looking? Obviously it's due to budget restraints, but I think the Borg could have been much cooler and much more creepy if we had some more variety of different kinds of drones, of different creatures, not all humanoids, and maybe some totally new creatures they created with their genetic engineering, like in the Giger paintings of the biomechanoids, creatures that are grown for specific tasks. We could have had monsters like in the Doom games, all those demons which are cybernetic, and the spider brains and all that kind of stuff. We could have had that kind of thing with the Borg, but we only ever see humanoids with some implants, and that's it. So sadly we never had anything like that, and most of the questions I raised in this video were never addressed in the actual shows, and maybe in some future Star Trek show they can always do that. They can always say that some Borg survived and start a new collective, or maybe there's even more than one collective. Maybe there was more than one queen at the same time, and so there are different groups of Borg. Maybe some of them are more benevolent than others, like the Jurati collective we saw in Season 2 of Picard. And by the way, Jurati has lived for 400 years and did not age a day, because we can see her face, it's still her, she's now the Borg queen, so that means they can stop the aging process, or maybe she just cloned herself to keep herself alive as the queen. So again, it's not clear, but my assumption is that with their advanced technology the Borg are able to live much longer, and they are able to clone themselves if necessary. And therefore they will not all die off once they finish assimilating everyone. And also the line that kind of provoked this whole video was when we saw the latest Borg queen in the last episode of Picard. She directly said that the Borg are dying off by starvation and age. And that kind of annoyed me, because what do you mean starvation when in TNG it was specifically mentioned that the only thing a Borg drone needs is energy, because his cybernetic parts can replicate any organic material that their body needs, and so they only need energy. So are you telling me the Borg are unable to find any sources of energy anywhere in the universe, that they have to eat physical food all of a sudden? Do they have to grow farms to grow food to keep themselves from starving? It makes no sense. What's the problem of finding a power source? Just park your ship next to a star and collect its solar energy. So what did this new queen mean, that they die from starvation? And they even said in the episode that she's cannibalizing her own drones to keep herself alive, which also makes no sense. Are they telling us they have so little energy, they cannot feed themselves, and yet they're able to hold themselves in the atmosphere of Jupiter without falling down and getting crushed? So obviously they do have a whole bunch of energy left, and yet they cannot feed their own Borg drones. Or maybe she only did it to them to keep herself young, because otherwise she will grow old faster. Maybe that's how they do it, kind of like a vampire. And if age is indeed a problem, as this new queen says, then what will happen if she succeeds in assimilating everyone? If Borg drones do age and die, then everyone will be a Borg, then everyone will die, and if they do not reproduce, as Seven says, then eventually there will be no one left. There will only be their technological remains. And so if they said that's the goal, that's what the Borg actually want, to become a full robotic AI in the end, they only want to assimilate everyone's technology and knowledge, and they don't care what will happen with their biological parts later on in the future. If that was the stated goal, then that will make sense, but it's not. They always said they want to keep everyone's biological parts as well, and so it makes no sense that this new queen says that they're now dying off from age and starvation. So that's why I think this is all an interesting question. Let me know what you think, and we can continue the discussion in the comments section below, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.